Ancient Mesopotamia is old, very old. It's widely considered to be the cradle of human civilization, with some of the earliest settlements dating back to 6500 BC. But these early societies were tribal hunter-gatherers. It would take another few thousand years for the first cities to emerge, and even longer for them to develop into large economies that could support themselves and grow. The first Mesopotamian empire we know of was the Akkadian Empire in the 24th century BC, but it would be their successors who made the greatest impact on the ancient world, the Babylonians. The Babylonian Empire reached its peak during the reigns of Hammurabi, the lawmaker, and Nebuchadnezzar II, the conqueror. But what many people don't realize is that the roots of the Babylonian economy can be traced back centuries before them to the emergence of one of the most important crops in history, barley. But how did a grain cultivated along the banks of the Euphrates River lead to the rise of an empire? Let's find out. In order to understand Babylonian economics, we need to start at the beginning. Like most ancient civilizations, they relied on agriculture to sustain their population and drive their economic activity. And while they grew other crops, barley was by far their most important. To the ancient Babylonians, barley was life itself. It was used in religious ceremonies, served as payment for workers, and was even brewed into beer for both consumption and trade. You see, barley was so vital to the Babylonian economy that they developed a sophisticated system of accounting based on the grain. This system was revolutionary for its time. They created clay tokens in the shape of various commodities, including barley. These tokens were used to record transactions and keep track of debts and taxes. The tokens were stamped with a unique design for each type of good and then stored in clay envelopes. By counting the number of tokens in each envelope, merchants could determine the value of their goods and settle their accounts. This system laid the foundation for double-entry bookkeeping, which is still used today to record financial transactions. And it all started with barley. This grain was so important to the Babylonians that they even had a god for it, named Namu. He was responsible for ensuring that the crops grew well and that the people had enough to eat. In fact, the god's name literally means to make sprout. The reverence for barley extended to its storage and distribution. The Babylonians built massive granaries to store their grain surplus and ensure that they had enough to last through the winter months or even times of war. The granaries were often filled with clay tablets recording the amount of grain stored inside. This practice helped to keep track of supplies and prevent theft. As the Babylonian Empire grew, so did their demand for barley. They conquered neighboring territories and collected tribute in the form of grain. In addition to growing barley domestically, they also imported the grain from other regions. One of their main suppliers was Elam, a kingdom located in present-day Iran. The Babylonians valued Elamite barley because it was higher quality and easier to process into flour. It was also cheaper than buying local barley, which was subject to higher taxes. The introduction of foreign barley into the Babylonian economy diversified their food supply and gave them access to new markets. The Babylonians learned new techniques for processing the grain, such as milling it into flour for baking bread. This cultural exchange enriched the Babylonian diet and contributed to the growth of their economy. While barley played a significant role in the Babylonian economy, it wasn't the only commodity that drove their prosperity. They also had a thriving trade in wool, textiles, metalwork, and slaves. But the backbone of their economic system was the exchange of goods. The Babylonians believed that trade was the key to prosperity, and they encouraged merchants to travel to distant lands in search of new markets. They established trading posts throughout their empire to facilitate the exchange of goods and collect taxes. One of their most important trading partners was the Kingdom of Mari, located on the upper reaches of the Euphrates River. The Mari Kingdom specialized in importing cedar wood from the mountains of Lebanon. The Babylonians used the cedar wood for building ships, houses, and furniture. The trade with Mari brought great wealth to both kingdoms and helped to strengthen their alliance. Another important aspect of Babylonian economics was the use of standardized weights and measures. They developed a system of weights based on the mass of barley seeds, which ensured fair and accurate measurements when buying and selling goods. The system was so precise that it's still used in modern times for measuring precious metals. This attention to detail and accuracy helped to create a stable and predictable market, which in turn fostered economic growth. But perhaps the most significant contribution of the Babylonians to economics was the development of a monetary system. Before the Babylonians, trade was primarily conducted through barter, which could be difficult and inefficient. With the introduction of currency, goods could be exchanged more easily and accurately. The Babylonians didn't use coins, but rather a system of weights and measures based on silver and gold. Merchants would weigh out the value of their goods and pay the difference in silver or gold. This system allowed for a more efficient exchange of goods and helped to stimulate economic activity. It also made it easier to collect taxes and regulate trade. The Babylonian Empire was a hub for international trade, connecting merchants from Mesopotamia, Anatolia, the Levant, and even India. The empire's strategic location along major trade routes made it a vital stopping point for merchants traveling between these regions. The bustling marketplaces of Babylon and other Babylonian cities were filled with merchants from all over the known world, eager to buy and sell their wares. The exchange of goods and ideas between merchants from different cultures led to the spread of new technologies, innovations, and artistic styles throughout the empire. For example, Babylonian merchants traveling to India may have brought back new spices and fabrics to sell in their home markets. Similarly, merchants from Anatolia may have introduced new metalworking techniques to the Babylonians. One of the most important trade goods that passed through the Babylonian Empire was silver. Silver was also used as a form of currency, making it an essential component of the Babylonian economy. The Babylonians obtained silver from mines in Anatolia and the Levant and used it to produce jewelry, tableware, and other decorative items. In addition to silver, the Babylonians also traded in large quantities of textiles, particularly linen and wool. The empire's skilled weavers produced high-quality textiles that were in demand throughout the ancient world. Babylonian merchants would travel to distant lands to purchase raw materials such as wool from the kingdom of Mari or cotton from India, which they would then process and sell in their home markets. The Babylonians also had a thriving trade in metalwork, particularly bronze and iron. The empire's skilled metalworkers produced weapons, tools, and other items that were in demand throughout the ancient world. The introduction of ironworking to the Babylonians by merchants from Anatolia led to the production of stronger and more durable goods. In addition to these manufactured goods, the Babylonians also traded in agricultural products such as grain, fruit, and wine. The empire's fertile lands produced an abundance of crops which were in demand by neighboring civilizations. Babylonian merchants would establish plantations to grow specialty crops such as grapes for winemaking and distribute them throughout the empire. Despite the benefits of trade, it's important to acknowledge that slavery also played a significant role in the Babylonian economy. The Babylonians kept slaves who were captured in war or purchased from slave traders. Slaves were considered property and were bought and sold like any other commodity. They worked in various industries such as agriculture, metalworking, and construction. The use of slave labor contributed to the growth of the Babylonian economy, but it also resulted in the brutal practice of human trafficking. The Babylonians participated in the trade of slaves, which involved capturing, transporting, and selling people as property. This trade had devastating consequences for individuals and communities. Families were torn apart and entire populations were decimated by the slave trade. It's important to acknowledge this dark aspect of Babylonian economics to understand the complexities of their society. The Babylonian economy was a complex and sophisticated system that played a vital role in the growth and prosperity of the empire. The empire's strategic location along major trade routes made it a hub for international trade, connecting merchants from Mesopotamia, Anatolia, the Levant, and even India. Through trade, the Babylonians gained access to a wide variety of goods, including silver, textiles, metalwork, grain, fruit, and wine. Their skilled merchants and innovative accounting systems facilitated the exchange of goods and stimulated economic activity. However, it's important to acknowledge the dark side of the Babylonian economy, namely the use of slave labor and the brutal practice of human trafficking. Despite these flaws, the Babylonian economy was a remarkable achievement for its time and laid the foundation for future economic systems. Their contributions to trade, banking, and accounting had a lasting impact on the ancient world and beyond. So next time you raise a glass of beer, do a double take and think about the ancient Babylonians and their love of barley. Without this humble grain, there may not have been a Babylonian empire, no sophisticated accounting systems, no international trade, and no beer. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you want to learn more about ancient civilizations. We've got videos on ancient Egypt, Greece, and Rome, and many more. So check them out. Thanks again for watching. See you next time.